Hello, in this presentation from qualityinspection.org, I'll talk you through what a quality inspection is. We'll give you context, tools, and a template. Let's get started with the context and answer the question, what is a quality inspection? As you may know, inspections are where quality inspectors are checking your products to make sure that they are of the right quality and will meet your expectations. But let's have a look at the official definition. An inspection is an activity such as measuring, examining, testing or gauging one or more characteristics of a product and comparing the results with specified requirements in order to establish whether conformity is achieved for each characteristic. What's the difference between an inspection and an audit? The term inspection refers to the activity of checking products, whereas audit applies to analysing manufacturing processes and/or systems. What guides the quality inspector? Well, the quality inspector usually follows a pre-established quality checklist that is based on the product specifications that you've set. What will typically be inspected? Inspected products can be the components used for production, semi-finished goods, or most often finished goods before shipment to a customer. So who's doing the checking? There are two options really. The buyer's own inspectors or an external agency appointed by the buyer, that's first-party QC, or the supplier's quality controllers. That's second-party QC. Every day, hundreds of thousands of first-party inspectors travel to factories all around Asia in order to check customers' products. These people are the focus of this presentation. How are QC findings reported? Well, most companies have defined an inspection report template. I'll run you through the typical sections just quickly here. So we check the conformity to specifications. Your product specs are kind of a checklist for the inspector, so typical points to be checked are materials, workmanship, appearance labelling, inner packing and outer packing. You can see some extracts from a template below. First of all, materials and components. In this case, the product has failed because the inspector is expecting rubber and has found plastic. It also includes measurements, so you can see here that the measurements are correct. And special tests, so this could be for the safety, function of the product, etc. And here the test has also been passed. All along the way, the inspector will be capturing photos, maybe even videos. Even in programs like MS Word, you can prepare places to add these media very, very easily. Good to know is when you're working with a quality assurance agency, they're going to have some sort of template. So it's important to look at a sample report of theirs before working with them, just to check that the template and the reporting that they're doing fits your needs. So what statistical tools are used to know how many defective units can be accepted by the inspector? Realistically, some of the products that have been produced by your supplier may have some defects, hopefully not many, hopefully not large defects. In most cases, a visual check is done by the inspector, and a basic function check too. So in the case of electrical products, this would be turning it on and off and seeing if it works. We need to categorize defective samples. Usually there are three buckets for these: critical, major and minor defects. This will help you to make decisions on what to do when they're found. If you're purchasing general consumer goods, you can probably accept a certain percentage of defective goods. So how do we define how many defects we can accept? Well, we'll use the AQL tables. So in table 1, we will assess how large a sample needs to be checked. And then in table 2, this shows us the acceptance quality limit in percentages. So that's the defects that you can or cannot accept. We have gone into inspection levels and AQL tables in a lot of detail in other videos in our YouTube channel. I'll leave the link to those in the video description. Also, the inspector will be using a quality inspection checklist to assess quality. This will help them to answer the questions, would a consumer or user accept this product? Or would this create issues down the road if we're talking about, say, a component? So since the products have all been made based on an agreed on specification, a checklist can be made from these. This is an example of part of a QC checklist used for checking wristwatches. As you can see here from the different checkpoints, this kind of guides the inspector in what they're looking for. So on the case, they're checking for scratches, bad polishing, and other cosmetic defects. Now, you might have tolerances for these, and the inspector will know that. So depending on how large a scratch is, for example, that may be a critical defect, or maybe it will be less serious. So ultimately, the inspector will be thinking, does the production conform to these specifications? An important concept to note is why inspecting earlier is generally better. So essentially, in quality management, we believe the sooner we eliminate errors, the better. Many studies across all industries have demonstrated that there's a cost and time ratio for development, production, delivery of 1:10:100. So what does that mean? It means that each error will cost 10 times more in dollars and time to fix in production than it would to fix in development, and 100 times more if the error actually reaches the customer. You can see here that the amounts that it would cost you to fix problems get very large very quickly. So if you're only checking quality at the end of production when everything's been made, you're taking a risk. But actually, you don't need to wait that long to check. So here are the 3 most common types of quality inspections. So you might be checking when components are delivered, and this will help you to find out if they're actually substandard. You can check when production starts. So these are early in the production cycle, and this will help to make sure that the supplier is doing the right thing from the beginning, and also that the first units coming off the production line are acceptable. And then towards the end of the production cycle, we could be checking when 30% of the order is finished, and this checks the average quality and production status, monitors and the corrective actions put in place, and when packing starts as well. So everything's almost done. The inspector could be checking labeling and packing before everything is packed. But here are the top 3. So first of all, pre-production inspection. So you've heard the phrase garbage in, garbage out. If a factory receives defective inputs, so those are the components or raw materials, it's likely that the end products are not going to be good. So we can decrease quality risks when we inspect those inputs prior to production. Samples can be taken randomly and checked visually, or sent to a lab for tests. You, the buyer, will clearly define what inputs are acceptable before you place an order. An experienced inspector can also examine the making of a prototype or sample to make sure of 2 things. So firstly, has the factory understood the technical files? Do they literally know what you want? And has the development team clearly communicated the requirements to the manufacturing team? Is the equipment for mass production similar to that used for making prototypes? If a pre-production inspection takes place when production has already started, this is also good because it allows the inspector to examine the process and sometimes check a few finished products. However, if there are some issues, the factory might refuse to stop production because that will cause huge disruption of the lines, even if the inspector finds that there are some non-conforming issues. Generally speaking, pre-production inspections are adapted to customized and complex products. If you're producing more standard items, inspection during production is probably more suitable, and we'll go on to that now. So the second most popular inspection is during production inspection. This could be called inline, in process, due pro. So as we said earlier, a buyer doesn't need to wait until the end of production before doing an inspection. If you do, the factory might have to rework, which will cause a lot of loss of time. If products can't be repaired, the factory may need to reorder the components and reproduce everything. That's long delays, financial loss for the factory, scrap products, financial loss for you potentially. And they may refuse to repair or reproduce the products, period. Especially if they suggest that the agreed specifications were ambiguous and they've actually done the right job. So if you do inspect during production, you get 3 advantages. Firstly, the first products that got out of the line are all inspected for conformity to your requirements. If any issues are raised at this stage, it's possible for the factory to take some corrective actions and therefore avoid long delays caused by checking after the fact. Secondly, based on the production start date and the number of products already finished, your inspector is going to give you some idea about the shipment schedule. Thirdly, you're going to see where the goods are produced. The inspector can see the goods coming off the line at your supplier. This will confirm that they are not subcontracting the production to another workshop who you may have no relationship with and no knowledge of. So third-party inspectors can either check the first finished products getting out of the line or come in at a later stage and select samples from a larger pool of finished goods. And finally, the third most popular inspection is final random inspection, and this is in fact the top QC inspection for importers. It typically takes place once all the products are finished and are ready for shipment, but they haven't been shipped out yet. In many cases, the inspector accepts up to 20% of unpacked products per reference. This way, the inspection can take place without delaying the shipment. The conformity of the products is checked against a list of criteria defined by the buyer, which we went into earlier on. So this is going to include product quantity, workmanship, function, safety aspect, size, packing, and more. Buyers are advised to ask their inspectors to keep track of which cartons were opened. So in that way, a second spot inspection will allow you to assess whether the inspector has done their job well as well. Out of the 3 inspections that we've gone into here, this is the only one where the total quantity of products can be counted, and where samples of finished products can be drawn in a truly random manner. So we get a good representation of the whole batch of products. As a result, the results of final inspections are the most reliable. However, this reliability doesn't mean that inspectors can guarantee the quality of the whole order when they pass inspection. This isn't going to be possible for several reasons. Firstly, after the inspection is done and before shipment, many things can happen. We link to a blog post about this here. A dishonest factory can ship a smaller quantity. They might substitute the content of the cartons, and more shady practices. There is a solution to avoid these happening though, and that's a container loading supervision. I'll add a link to that in the description of the video too. An inspection result is not 100% reliable. A random sample is better than average products, but inspectors are human. They might make a mistake. It's possible that some inspectors may be bribed by the supplier to look the other way, and other human factors. And another reason why inspectors can't be held responsible for product quality is the discrepancy between the inspection fee and the total value of the goods at stake. So for an inspection, you may be paying around $300 for one day, but they're inspecting goods of the value of maybe more than $100,000. So when there's a huge gulf in value, the inspection can be said to be something that really helps importers, but it cannot be the be-all and end-all. So let's wrap up. Quality inspections are where products' measurements, characteristics and materials are checked to assure their conformance with your specifications. They're a tool to help assure your product's quality and supplier's reliability. The quality inspector will use an inspection report template to collect findings. This will include conformity to specifications, measurements, test results, and images. Make sure when you work with an inspection firm that you can see their template and an example of an inspection. The AQL Tables and QC checklist will enable the inspector to assess how many defective products are in a batch and if the numbers constitute an inspection pass or fail. And the 3 most common quality inspections that importers use are the pre-production inspection, during production inspection, and the most popular, final random inspection. So that sums up what a quality inspection is. Just very quickly, Sofeast can help you perform quality inspections as your inspection partner. You can have a look at some of the solutions here. And we create a lot of blog posts and resources on qualityinspection.org, also on Sofeast and on SynControl. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we'll see you next time.